Do those childhood meals ever cross your mind? The ones you haven't seen in decades, but can still taste like it was yesterday? Back then, they got us through the lean times and left behind flavors that never quite faded. They might have come from the back of a soup can or your school cafeteria tray. If you grew up in the 50s, 60s, or even the early 70s, chances are you remember these meals. So what happens if we let them vanish for good? Tomato soup cake. Whoever decided to bake a cake with tomato soup deserves a medal or maybe a psych evaluation. But this cake is actually good. It's moist, spiced with cinnamon and cloves, and has a subtle tang that keeps you guessing. In the 70s, it was the ultimate secret ingredient dessert. Moms would serve it at the PTA bake sale, grinning as people tried to figure out what made it so good. The recipe was a favorite for after-school snacks, and if you told someone what was in it, you'd get looks like you just admitted to putting ketchup on ice cream. But trust me, it works. If you're feeling brave, dust off your bundt pan and see if you can fool your family too. Chicken a la king on toast. This dish made every home cook feel a little bit fancy, even if the closest they got to royalty was a deck of cards. Chicken a la king was the ultimate way to dress up leftover chicken. Just toss it in a creamy sauce with mushrooms and peas, then ladle it over toast points. The whole thing came together in a flash, but looked like you'd spent all afternoon at the stove. In the 70s, this was the go-to for surprise guests or company nights. If you wanted to impress, you'd add a sprinkle of paprika or a splash of sherry. It's proof that sometimes a little sauce goes a long way. Tuna noodle skillet. Before one-pot meals were a trend, tuna noodle skillet was already winning hearts and saving time. Canned tuna, egg noodles, peas, and a can of cream of mushroom soup. Stir it all together, and dinner was done before the commercials ended. The best part? Topping it with crushed potato chips or buttery breadcrumbs for a little crunch. It was comfort food at its finest, and every bite tasted like home. Egg foo young sandwiches. Egg foo young might sound like a takeout order, but in the 1970s South, it was a clever way to jazz up eggs and leftovers. Whisk up eggs with bean sprouts, green onions, and whatever veggies were on hand. Fry into little patties, and sandwich them between slices of soft white bread. A drizzle of soy sauce gave it just enough exotic flair to make dinner feel special. These sandwiches were quick, filling, and just different enough to break up the meatloaf monotony. Plus, they were a great way to sneak vegetables into picky eaters. Call it omelet surprise, and watch the plates clear. Cornbread waffles. Waffle irons weren't just for breakfast in the 70s. They were the secret weapon for turning cornbread into a crispy, golden treat. Cornbread waffles took just minutes to whip up and were perfect for sopping up chili, stew, or even a drizzle of honey. The outside was crunchy, the inside tender, and the whole thing was ready before you could say, "Supper's on." Some folks added jalapenos or shredded cheese for an extra kick. If you wanted to impress, serve them stacked with barbecue pork or fried chicken. It was Southern ingenuity at its tastiest. Ham salad surprise. Ham salad was the original clean out the fridge recipe, and the surprise was always what you'd find inside. Chopped ham, sweet pickles, celery, and a generous spoonful of mayo made the base. But after that, anything went. Hard-boiled eggs, olives, or even a dash of hot sauce. Spread on crackers or between slices of bread, it was the ultimate lunchbox solution. The real fun was in the mixing. Every batch was a little different, and every bite was a little adventure. If you had leftover ham from Sunday dinner, you knew what was coming for Monday lunch. Sardine salad on rye. Sardines might not win any popularity contests today, but back then, they were the secret weapon for a quick, protein-packed lunch. Mash them with a little mayo, chopped onion, and a squeeze of lemon. Then pile high on rye bread, eyes and all. The flavor was bold, the nutrition unbeatable, and the prep time practically non-existent. This was the kind of sandwich you either loved or politely ignored at the potluck table. But those who loved it really loved it. It's a taste of the past that's ready for a comeback. Velveeta cheese fudge. Let's talk about Velveeta cheese fudge. Now, before you run for the hills, hear me out. The first time I saw this recipe, I thought it was a typo. Like someone meant to write velvet and got confused. But nope, this is real life. In the 70s, home cooks were all about experimenting, and Velveeta was practically a food group in the South. The idea was simple. Melt that orange block of cheese with chocolate, sugar, and butter, and you'd get a fudge that was oddly smooth, creamy, and not at all cheesy in flavor. The first bite was always met with skepticism, but the second bite usually sealed the deal. This recipe was a favorite for holiday trays and church bake sales, partly for the taste and partly for the conversation. Guess the secret ingredient became a running joke at every family gathering. It's proof that Southerners will try anything once, and sometimes it's actually delicious. The real fun was in the reactions. People would scrunch up their faces, take a bite, and then ask for the recipe. If you're feeling adventurous, give it a try. Just don't tell anyone what's in it until after they've tasted it. Mock apple pie. No apples? No problem. Mock apple pie was the Depression-era miracle that stuck around for decades. Ritz crackers, sugar, and lemon juice worked kitchen magic to create a filling that tasted just like apple pie. The first time I saw this recipe, I thought it was a joke, like someone was pulling my leg. But one bite, and I was a believer. The crackers soften and absorb the flavors, creating a texture and taste that's eerily similar to real apples. This recipe was especially popular when apples were out of season or out of budget. The best part was watching guests try to guess the ingredients. Most never did. It was a sweet slice of culinary history that still surprises today. Some folks added cinnamon or a splash of vanilla for extra flavor. Serve it warm with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, and you've got a dessert that's ready in no time. Cheese dreams. Open-faced sandwiches topped with gooey cheese and a slice of tomato, broiled until bubbly. What's not to love? Cheese dreams were the midnight snack of choice for many a Southern teen, and the perfect quick lunch for busy moms. Sometimes a slice of ham or a sprinkle of paprika joined the party. The beauty of cheese dreams was in their simplicity. Just bread, cheese, and whatever else you had on hand. In the 70s, they were a staple at slumber parties and after-school gatherings. The cheese would get all melty and golden, and the tomato would soften just enough to release its juices. Some folks added a dash of Worcestershire or a sprinkle of herbs for extra flavor. Serve them with a side of pickles or chips, and you've got a meal that's ready in about 10 minutes. If you're looking for a quick, comforting snack, cheese dreams are the way to go. Just don't blame me if you start craving them at midnight. Shrimp wiggle. Shrimp wiggle was a name you either laughed at or leaned into. A creamy concoction of shrimp and green peas in a white sauce, spooned over toast or rice. It wiggled on the plate, and it jiggled in your spoon. But it always delivered warmth in a way only vintage meals can. It came from military cookbooks and made its way into American homes during the post-war years, lingering well into the 70s. This was not just a meal, it was a testament to what you could do with a can of shrimp, a handful of frozen peas, and a dream. Eventually, it slipped away into obscurity, replaced by boxed dinners and microwavable trays. But there is something defiant about a dish like shrimp wiggle. It asks you to remember a time when food could be strange, honest, and still make you feel whole. Pineapple cheese salad. This jiggly, sweet and savory salad was a fixture at church socials and family reunions. Pineapple chunks, shredded cheddar, and mini marshmallows, all bound together with mayo or whipped topping. The first time I saw this salad, I wasn't sure what to make of it. Pineapple and cheese? Really? But one bite, and I was hooked. The sweetness of the pineapple and marshmallows balanced the sharpness of the cheddar, creating a flavor that's hard to describe but impossible to forget. Some folks added a sprinkle of nuts or a dash of paprika for extra crunch. The real fun was in the reactions. Half the guests loved it, the other half just didn't get it. but it always got people talking, and sometimes that's all you need. Serve it as a side dish or a dessert. Spam Mac Deluxe. Spam and Mac Deluxe was comfort food with a crunchy crown. Imagine a baked macaroni and cheese casserole, but loaded with cubed Spam, then topped with a thick layer of crushed cornflakes. It was salty, cheesy, creamy, and crispy all at once. A full sensory experience built from pantry staples. Spam, for all its stigma, was the unsung hero of the 70s dinner table. It did not ask for much, and it gave you everything. Families made it when budgets were tight, when groceries were sparse, when time was short, and it always delivered. Somewhere along the way, it got shelved as too old-fashioned, too salty, too honest. But Spam and Mac Deluxe still lives in handwritten notes and family cookbooks, waiting for someone brave enough to bring it back. Cucumber cream cheese tea sandwiches. A nod to Southern hospitality, these dainty sandwiches were a staple at bridal showers and garden parties. Thinly sliced cucumbers, herbed cream cheese, and soft white bread. Simple, refreshing, and ready in minutes, these sandwiches were the epitome of elegance, perfect for any occasion. The cream cheese was often mixed with a sprinkle of dill or a dash of garlic powder for extra flavor. The real fun was in the presentation, cutting the sandwiches into fancy shapes or trimming off the crusts. Serve them with a side of tea or lemonade, and you've got a snack that's ready in about 10 minutes. If you're looking for a quick, elegant appetizer, this is the way to go. Fried bologna sliders. Bologna was the lunch meat of choice, and frying it made it a delicacy. Stack fried bologna on small buns with a swipe of mustard and a pickle slice, and you've got a snack that's equal parts nostalgia and comfort. In the 70s, this was considered party food, and it still brings a smile. The bologna would curl up at the edges and get crispy, while the inside stayed tender and juicy. Some folks added a slice of cheese or a dollop of relish. Serve them at your next gathering, and you've got a crowd pleaser that's ready in no time. Buttermilk pie milkshake. Blend buttermilk, vanilla ice cream, a splash of lemon, and a sprinkle of nutmeg for a milkshake that tastes just like Grandma's pie. This recipe was a clever way to use up leftover buttermilk and cool off on a hot southern afternoon. In the 70s, this was the kind of treat that could make any day feel special. The buttermilk added a tangy twist, while the ice cream made it creamy and indulgent. Some folks added a drizzle of caramel or a sprinkle of cinnamon. Serve it in a tall glass with a straw, and you've got a treat that's ready in about 10 minutes. Banana flip sandwich. A sweet treat from lunchboxes past. A split banana, spread with peanut butter and marshmallow fluff, sandwiched between slices of soft bread. Quick, fun, and a little bit messy, this sandwich was a favorite with kids and adults who never quite grew up. This was the kind of lunch that could make any day feel special. The peanut butter added a nutty richness, while the marshmallow fluff made it sweet and gooey. Serve it with a glass of milk or a side of chips, and you've got a super quick lunch. Biscuit hot dog rolls, pigs in a blanket. Before frozen party appetizers were a thing, Bisquick hot dog rolls were a mom's best trick. They were crispy on the edges, soft in the middle, and perfectly suited for dunking in whatever condiment was within reach. In the 60s, they were hailed as budget-friendly fun, and they lived up to the hype. No toothpicks, no fancy dips, just handheld joy in every bite. Turkey Club roll-ups. Long before wraps became a thing at corner delis, there were Turkey Club roll-ups. Tortillas or flatbread, smeared with seasoned cream cheese, layered with turkey slices, shredded lettuce, and maybe a bit of crumbled bacon if you were living right. Then rolled tight, sliced into pinwheels, and stabbed with toothpicks like tiny edible Ferris wheels. They looked fancy on a platter and disappeared faster than you could say, "coolers in the back." Great for feeding a crowd when you'd rather be sitting on a lawn chair than manning the stove. Betty Crocker called them festive finger fare, which is exactly what they were. Barbecued meatballs. Sticky, saucy, and often suspiciously sweet, made in batches the size of a toddler, and simmered in a slow cooker until the toothpicks practically stood up on their own. The secret was always in the sauce, equal parts ketchup and grape jelly, or sometimes Coca-Cola if you were feeling wild. Don't knock it till you've tried it. Betty Crocker loved this recipe because it let you serve hot food without heating up the kitchen. Today, frozen meatballs and bottled sauce get the job done, but these scratch-made ones were something to remember. Angel biscuits. Somewhere between a dinner roll and a biscuit, Angel biscuits rose with yeast, but baked with the flakiness of a pie crust. Buttery, golden, and light as a hymn, they earned their name honestly. They were soft enough to cradle honey, sturdy enough to sandwich a piece of sausage, and fancy enough to show up in a bread basket with a doily. Watermelon rind pickles. Now, here's a little jar of magic that only Southern grandmas and brave souls remember. Watermelon rind pickles were the sweet and tangy answer to the question, what on earth do we do with all these scraps? Instead of tossing out the rinds after slicing up a summer melon, they'd be peeled, cubed, and slow cooked in a spiced vinegar syrup until they turned glassy and tender, like tiny emerald jewels with a bite. You couldn't rush these. They took hours, sometimes days, and made the whole house smell like cinnamon and curiosity. Some folks swore they were better than dessert. Others swore at them. These days, most people toss the rinds without a second thought. But these pickles were a tribute to resourcefulness, patience, and a little sweet surprise on the side. Because in a Betty Crocker kitchen, nothing was wasted, and everything was a chance to surprise. Pineapple upside-down cake. There was a time when every good Southern cook kept a can of pineapple rings in the pantry just in case company came calling. And when they did, out came the cast-iron skillet and the jar of maraschino cherries. Pineapple upside-down cake was more than dessert. It was edible drama. You started with melted butter and brown sugar, arranged the fruit like stained glass, and poured the golden batter right over the top. Then came the moment of truth, the flip. One clean turn of the skillet, and there it was, glistening, caramelized, and smelling like a tropical vacation you didn't have to leave the porch for. In the 50s and 60s, this cake meant celebration. Sunday dinner, church socials, holidays, you name it. These days, folks might buy pineapple sheet cake from the bakery. But back then, this upside-down beauty was the crown jewel of homemade hospitality. Homemade lemonade in mason jars. Forget the powdered stuff. Real lemonade came from real lemons. Squeezed by hand, pulp and all. Stirred into a big pitcher with sugar you eyeballed and water so cold it gave you brain freeze. In the 60s, no front porch gathering was complete without a sweating mason jar full of sunshine. Maybe your mama floated a few lemon slices on top to show off, or maybe she snuck in a sprig of mint from the garden. Some versions were so tart they made your lips pucker for 3 minutes. Others were mellow and sweet. These days, most folks grab a bottle from the fridge case, but real lemonade, made with love and lemon seeds, still tastes like childhood. Tomato aspic mold. Imagine a tomato juice-based jello filled with chopped celery, green olives, and hard-boiled eggs, served cold on purpose. Popular in the 60s as a refreshing summer side, it had a bold, tangy twang. Housewives were told it was elegant. Children suspected it was punishment. But there it stood, tall and proud, often garnished with parsley sprigs and a whole lot of hope. Frankfurter Crown Roast. The Frankfurter Crown Roast was a culinary optical illusion. You took a dozen hot dogs, stood them upright in a circle, tied them with kitchen twine, and baked them like royalty. Inside the crown, you piled mashed potatoes or baked beans. Your choice of filling, really. It looked impressive in a vaguely Soviet sort of way. The 1963 Betty Crocker advert called it a regal touch for your backyard bash, which is code for your mother had 3 kids, a polyester apron, and $5. The whole thing came together in under 20 minutes and got applause every time. Lime cheese salad. Yes, you heard that right. Lime, cheese, salad. This wonder of mid-century ambition featured lime jello, cottage cheese, crushed pineapple, chopped nuts, and a dash of vinegar. You poured it into a copper mold shaped like a wreath and chilled it until firm, then served it on a bed of iceberg lettuce with mayonnaise. Somehow, it straddled the line between dessert and appetizer with a confidence that can only be described as 1960s. The combination of creamy, tart, and sweet was either oddly satisfying or deeply unsettling. No in between. Betty Crocker promoted it as a sophisticated choice for get-togethers. You knew someone meant business if they brought the lime cheese salad. Ham salad sandwiches. You could smell them coming out of the fridge like a good secret. Mama would take leftover baked ham, or the kind sliced paper thin from the A&P deli, grind it up with sweet pickles, a little onion, a scoop of Miracle Whip, and just enough mustard to make your nose crinkle. The whole mess got slathered on bunny bread, or tucked inside hot dog buns, depending on what she had. If it sat overnight, even better. You'd eat it cold, with a side of Ruffles, while trying not to drip anything on the TV tray. Nowadays, folks call it a retro spread, but back then, it was just Thursday. Tuna stuffed tomatoes. Forget the casserole. This was cold, clever, and halfway fancy. Mama would hollow out big red tomatoes from the garden, then fill them with tuna salad made with star-kissed, sweet relish, chopped boiled eggs, and a suspicious amount of celery. Served with saltines or on a bed of iceberg, it looked downright gourmet for something made from a can. And you didn't dare let the juice run. It was an unspoken rule that the tomato had to hold its shape like a good church hat. It was cool, filling, and made you feel like you were eating something classy, even if the only thing in the fridge was Shasta and a half-eaten jello mold. Cold spaghetti salad. This wasn't your usual pasta salad. This was leftover spaghetti. Yes, actual spaghetti. Rinsed cold, tossed with Italian dressing from Good Seasons, and loaded up with cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, olives, cheese cubes, and whatever else hadn't expired. Mama served it in a Tupperware bowl with a missing lid, and it always tasted better on day 2. You ate it straight from the fridge while standing barefoot on linoleum, trying to decide if you were still hungry or just bored. Some folks added pepperoni slices, others added Miracle Whip. Either way, it was light, tangy, and summery in that we didn't want to cook anyway kind of way. Cottage cheese and pineapple plate. This one felt like something from a Slim Fast commercial, but it showed up on summer tables everywhere. Mama would plop a scoop of cottage cheese into a lettuce cup like she was plating for Better Homes and Gardens, then top it with pineapple rings straight from a Dole can. If she had maraschino cherries, one went right in the middle like a sugary bullseye. The whole thing was cold, sweet, and weirdly satisfying, especially when the cottage cheese picked up that syrupy tang. We didn't question it, we just ate it. English pea salad. It wasn't fancy, but it was cold. Mama made it with canned LeSueur peas, chopped boiled eggs, diced cheese, onion, and a whole mess of mayonnaise. Sometimes she tossed in crumbled bacon or pimentos, depending on the day. Served straight from the fridge, it was cool, tangy, and somehow always better after sitting for a few hours. You'd scoop it next to a sandwich or just eat it out of the bowl with a long-handled iced teaspoon. These days, peas go into risottos and pasta primavera. Back then, they wore mayo like a badge of honor. Bologna salad. Imagine ham salad's quirky cousin who dropped out of high school to become a lounge singer. Bologna salad was equal parts bold and baffling. Mama would toss chopped bologna into the food processor with boiled eggs, pickles, Miracle Whip, and maybe a squirt of French's mustard. The result looked like paste and smelled like summer break. She spread it on white bread or scooped it onto crackers, depending on how formal the occasion was. If you were lucky, she'd serve it chilled with a pickle spear and some chips on the side. Chicken salad with grapes and pecans. Mama would use leftover chicken, or canned if she had to. Mix it with mayo, chopped celery, red grapes, and pecans, and let it chill till supper time. Served on a croissant if company was coming, or on saltines if it was just us. It was cool, crunchy, sweet, and nutty, and somehow felt fancier than most anything else we had in the fridge. If it had a paper doily underneath, you knew someone was trying to impress the neighbor lady. Jello with cabbage and celery. Yes, you heard that right. Lime jello, grated cabbage, celery bits, and sometimes carrot slivers, suspended like a vegetable time capsule. Mama got the idea from a 1960s Knox gelatin recipe card. Served on a lettuce leaf with a blob of mayo, it was meant to be refreshing. It was also crunchy, wobbly, and unsettling. But we ate it anyway. Mostly because we were afraid not to. And honestly, it did hit different on a 97-degree day when the power had gone out. Lemon icebox pie. You want to talk about summer magic? Lemon icebox pie was cold, creamy perfection in a Keebler graham cracker crust, chilled until it could cut clean with a butter knife. Stirred together in under 5 minutes and hidden in the back of the fridge like a family heirloom. The best part was sneaking a slice before dinner, assuming she didn't catch you. It was tart, silky, and sweet, like a southern lemonade in pie form. Spaghetti-o casserole. Look, it's not glamorous, but it did count as dinner. Mama would open a few cans of Franco-American SpaghettiOs, mix in browned ground beef or chopped hot dogs, top it with shredded cheese, and bake it until bubbly. This was company's not comin' food. Just you, your siblings, and a casserole that tasted like childhood. You won't find it in Southern living, but it deserves a plaque in the Summer Supper Hall of Fame. Bologna boats. It was part art project, part act of desperation. Mama would take thick slices of bologna, microwave them until they curled into little cups, then fill them with mashed potatoes, cheese, or sometimes scrambled eggs. The result looked like something you'd see at a school science fair, but it was delicious, especially if she broiled the cheese until it bubbled. It was hot in the middle, crispy at the edges, and just plain weird, in the best way. Today it would get 2 million views on TikTok. Back then, it got served with a side of ketchup and no explanation. Barbecue chicken with mustard mop. This was Carolina cooking without the need for a smoker. Mama mixed yellow mustard, vinegar, salt, pepper, and a little butter into what she called her mop sauce. She'd brush it onto chicken drumsticks on the charcoal grill out back, using a pastry brush that lost half its bristles by the end of the cook. The result? Tangy golden chicken with charred edges and a flavor that slapped harder than any bottled sauce. It was spicy without being mean, and best served with white bread to soak up the extra sauce, or fan yourself if she went heavy on the vinegar. Barbecue spaghetti. Straight out of Memphis. And weird as it sounds, barbecue spaghetti was one of those dishes you didn't expect to love. Mama would mix leftover pulled pork or chopped barbecue chicken into spaghetti noodles, then stir in barbecue sauce, usually open pit or homemade with ketchup, vinegar, and brown sugar. It was sweet, smoky, tangy, and just odd enough to make it feel like a regional delicacy. If she added bell peppers and onions, you knew she was feeling inspired, or trying to stretch dinner one more day. Served warm or cold, it was summer weirdness at its most wonderful. Shrimp and macaroni salad. Mama didn't buy shrimp often, but when she did, it was the small frozen kind, from Piggly Wiggly's freezer bin, thawed and folded into elbow macaroni, celery, green peas, and a creamy mayo dressing. This was her company's coming version of pasta salad, chilled to perfection and served in the green glass bowl she only used for occasions. It tasted like beach trips, summer Sundays, and pastel Tupperware, all in one bite. You didn't need much, just a spoonful next to a slice of tomato and some sweet tea, and you were living right. Ham and peach skillet. It sounds fancy, but really, it was just canned peaches and fried ham. Mama browned ham steaks in a skillet, added the peach syrup and a few peach halves from a can of Libby's, Then let the whole thing simmer until the edges caramelized. The sweet savory glaze was practically drinkable, and the peaches made you feel like you were eating a fruit serving, even if your teeth stuck together from the syrup. Served with instant rice or mashed potatoes, it was one of those "why did we stop making this?" kind of meals. Pressed picnic sandwich loaf. The sandwich loaf wasn't dinner, it was theater. Mama sliced a loaf of white bread horizontally, layered it with fillings like pimento cheese, chicken salad, or deviled ham, and frosted the whole thing in whipped cream cheese like it was a party cake. Then she'd chill it in the fridge, slice it into cold rainbow layers, and serve it on her best Corelle. It was cold, soft, savory, and confusing. But we always cleaned our plates. Today's crowd might think it looks like something from a baby shower fever dream, but it once ruled every summer table that required both creativity and cream cheese. Salisbury steak with mashed potatoes and peas. This was the king of the TV tray. If you grew up in a southern home during the 70s, there's a good chance this made a regular appearance, either homemade or courtesy of a tinfoil Swanson tray. Thick ground beef patties smothered in brown gravy, nestled next to a scoop of buttery mashed potatoes with a gravy crater, and peas that somehow always rolled into everything else. It wasn't fancy, but it sure filled a belly. And let's be honest, if Mama made it from scratch with Lipton onion soup mix, you knew it was going to be a good night. These days, folks might grab a microwave meal, but it just doesn't hold that same dinner-time magic. Chicken and rice casserole, Campbell's classic. Creamy, comforting, and cooked in a single dish. This casserole was practically a love letter to every busy Southern mama. Found right inside that 1968 Campbell's cookbook, it featured white rice, cream of mushroom soup, and chicken thighs baked until the whole thing bubbled and browned around the edges. Sometimes she'd sprinkle crushed Ritz crackers on top for a little crunch, or stir in a spoonful of celery soup if she was feeling fancy. It wasn't glamorous, but it was dependable, like an old pair of house shoes. You don't see it often anymore, but when you do, it takes you right back. Tuna noodle casserole, straight from the Easy Weeknight Meals chapter of the Campbell's book, and likely every church potluck table in the South. It combined egg noodles, canned tuna, cream of mushroom soup, and peas, all baked under a crunchy layer of crushed potato chips. It wasn't a glamorous dish, but it sure was reliable. Kids might have groaned, but Mama knew she could whip it up with pantry staples, and somehow, it always stretched to feed an extra mouth or two. These days, most folks just toss tuna in a salad, but this was real deal 1970s survival food, served warm and with a side of Kool-Aid. Chicken and dumplings. Now here's one that never went out of style in the South. This was a Sunday supper dish that made the whole house smell like love. Fluffy dumplings floating in a rich, creamy broth, loaded with tender chicken. It was humble, filling, and downright soul-soothing. Some folks rolled their dumplings thin. Others dropped them in like biscuit dough. Either way, if you saw that big old pot on the stove, you knew Mama had been cooking all afternoon. Today, you might find a boxed version in the freezer aisle, but nothing touches the real thing. Tomato soup meatloaf, Campbell's twist. Ah yes, the meatloaf with a secret. This version used tomato soup instead of ketchup or tomato paste, giving it a sweeter, tangier flavor. It came straight from the Campbell's book and often had oats or crushed crackers to stretch the meat just a little further. Baked until the top caramelized just right, it was served in thick slices with green beans or corn on the side. It might have been humble, but it was hearty. And even if you didn't love it, you ate it, because there was no dessert until your plate was clean. Canned ham and pineapple slices. Now this one looked like something off a cruise ship buffet, if that ship only served things that jiggled. Canned ham, sliced thick and topped with pineapple rings and maraschino cherries, was baked into a sticky, sweet, salty main dish that somehow ended up on nearly every holiday buffet table. It had that strange gleam, equal parts gelatin and glaze. And you could always count on an aunt who swore it was better than ham from the butcher. While we might raise an eyebrow at it now, it was once the star of the dinner table, especially if served with candied yams and green bean casserole. These days, it's mostly collecting dust in the canned meat aisle, waiting on a retro revival. Skillet fried corn. This was the corn that didn't need a cob to be the star. Cut fresh off the ear and tossed in a skillet with bacon grease or butter, or both. This dish was pure Southern cookout alchemy. The kernels got golden, just a little bit chewy, and kissed with flavor that no microwave packet could touch. Grandma would sometimes toss in a pinch of sugar or a dash of black pepper, depending on her mood. And you'd swear you could taste her mood too. Served in a cast iron pan right from the stovetop, it was rustic and proud of it. It went with everything. There's a rhythm to scraping the bits from the bottom of the pan that no nonstick surface can recreate. Nowadays, folks go for frozen or canned corn more often, but this skillet version still lives rent-free in a lot of memories. Macaroni picnic salad. This was the dump it in and stir salad that somehow always turned out right. A box of elbow noodles, a few leftover ingredients, a prayer, and boom, you had enough food to fill a wash tub. It was tangy, creamy, and always served cold. If it had peas and cheddar cubes, even better. Some versions included ham or chopped egg, and if it was made the night before, heaven. Moms loved it because it was cheap. Kids loved it because it was carbs and mayo, and everyone knew not to question what was in it. Just be grateful it showed up. In the 60s, it wasn't about measurements. It was about instinct and convenience. Isn't it something how a simple dish can take you right back? Maybe to your mama's kitchen, or sitting at the kids' table with a plate full of mystery meat and jello salad. These weren't fancy meals, but they meant something. They fed big families, stretched every penny, and somehow still made us feel like we had enough. If any of these dishes brought back a memory, good, funny, or just plain strange, I hope you'll share it down in the comments. I read each one, and it's those stories that keep this little corner of the internet so special. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that thumbs up or subscribe. Till next time, take care of yourself, and maybe dig out one of those old recipes, just for old time's sake.